All right, we are back. You are listening to K Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. And I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and our very special guest is Nunia Rivera. Thank you again for joining. Yes. So, it is Nightmare Story time, guys. And Nightmare Story, I would say, we've had some just names of people you probably know. Matt Strong, Matt Atkinson, Trevor Thompson, Randall Wall. I mean, these are names that you and I both know. And I learned a lot from everyone's nightmares.
Yes.
I probably, get as much benefit interviewing these people just on that one nightmare story. So, you've got a story you were just briefing me on about something that happened not in Utah, not to you, but you just know of it, and it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was very expensive.
Yes.
Very expensive mistake. So I believe it happened in the Midwest, and for all of our listeners who may not be aware of maybe the real estate world or title insurance, I feel most people don't know what title insurance is.
Right.
So pretty much when you purchase a property, your seller buys what we call an owner's policy that protects the history of the title against any liens, encumbrances, defects to the title of the property, sometimes fraud. So this is really different because insurance will usually protect you in the future.
Yes.
For future incidents.
Right.
Title insurance on property actually insures you for the past.
Yes, that makes sense. Can you give an example just so listeners that have no idea what it is?
So let's say that somebody did some work on the property.
Okay.
Someone remodeled or,
like
added.
A contractor.
Yeah, a contractor did some work and they never got paid for it. They liened the property. You then 5 years later buy that property.
Yeah.
And a few months they come and knock on your door and say, hey, you guys actually owe us $15,000 because it's attached to your property. I know it wasn't you, but there's a lien on your home.
Right.
At that point, you'd probably be like, what?
Yeah.
Why? So
Yes.
that's when title insurance would kick in.
Gotcha.
So that's just an easy example.
Which is why you guys are so important, title companies.
Yes.
Yes.
Which with this nightmare story, it's like, please just I mean, it's not required by law in the state of Utah, but it's a part of the real estate purchase contract where the seller will protect you.
Yeah.
And then you as the buyer, your lender does require a title insurance policy. So anyone that's out there buying a house right now,
yes,
you're going to purchase a title insurance policy. It's just a one-time fee at the closing that will protect your lender.
Yes.
And your seller is purchasing one for you to protect you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the nightmare story, I'm pretty sure it happened in the Midwest. And so it was a big lot, I know that.
Okay.
In acres, I don't know the numbers
exact,
but there was a home that was built in between both properties.
Yeah, wow.
So the boundary line was in the middle of the home.
Amazing.
And how you do that? I'm like, you should at least, everyone out there who owns the property, at least have a good idea of where those boundary lines are.
Exactly.
But for whatever reason, it was confusing. They built a home on top of it. And so, of course, a few years later, the claim comes in of, and I don't know the numbers of how expensive it was in the Midwest, but it was expensive. So title insurance kicked in. Obviously, that home, those property owners didn't have to pay out of pocket aside just, what's it called? I'm drawing a blank with when you have a claim and you pay out of pocket.
Oh yeah, a deductible?
Yes. Aside from their deductible.
Yeah.
And then title insurance paid. The title company paid to tear down the house.
Oh, jeez.
And and oh my gosh, I just thought, wow, that is a really expensive mistake, and what a nightmare that is.
No kidding. Do you know if they went on and rebuilt the house where it should have been?
I don't know. Maybe, but I'm like that. Oh, that is a really bad nightmare.
That is a really bad nightmare. Holy cow! I mean, so obviously they didn't look at probably the plat map, right? That they get at title. They definitely didn't get a survey, because if they would have gotten a survey, a surveyor would have flagged off the lot and they would have known exactly where it was. Guys, very important probably to do a survey during your due diligence, not, just to be clear, like when would you do this survey? While you're under contract in your due diligence period. Not obviously after you've bought it, because you were planning on building a home here. Now you've bought it and you found out, oh crap, I can't build it here. Now you might not want the property anymore. So definitely a lesson there would be to look at the map.
Yeah.
Look at the plat map.
Yeah, just make sure you're represented by a really good real estate agent, and that, the title company has, the right data and information. We have access to that through the county recorder. So
yes.
And in something, and an additional thing is, before you start building anything, just really making sure you're getting, especially if it's close to a boundary line, I would get the city involved to make sure.
Yeah.
You're following code too. But
yes.
so those would be some of the advice.
Yeah, good advice. I think Jeff Brailio told me a couple weeks ago on the show that one of the biggest, what was the word he used, problems or biggest things that come up in real estate transaction is boundary lines throughout America, right? Just easements, boundary lines, not knowing where things are exactly. I know somebody who owned a property, several acres up in like Vernal or something, like up there. I think they're here in Salt Lake, but they had this extra land, and I think they use it whenever they want to go four-wheeling or something. But they don't go there often. And it had been several years, and they decided to go up there, and they went up there, and there was something, like the neighbor had built a fence, to separate his fancy lot and their lot, and they were like, wow, that looks like probably could be on our, but it's just all open land up there, right?
Yeah.
So I think, they're like, I think this fence is like on our side. And so anyways, they got a surveyor and it was 10 feet on their side. And they'd been that way for like 3 or 4 years. So they of course now have to do a search on the county assessor to see who's the owner, to then find out how to get in contact with them, to tell them that they built a fence 10 feet on their property, and it became a huge legal nightmare.
Yeah.
And of course the person didn't want to lose the money that he just spent on building this brand new fence, and now he has to move it over, and that's bad news for him in every way, shape, and form. And so
yeah, a lot of times they're really like fence, we hear more of that.
Yes.
Where just the fence was built on the wrong side, or made it 15 feet over. Yeah. In this case, I'm like, oh my gosh, they literally built a house, and it was similar. It was just a rural area, So it was just, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just insane.
That
you
is
literally
insane.
have to knock down the house. It's not your lot. It's not yours.
Yeah. Can you imagine being the person who has to notify them? Like, it's your lot, right? And you're like, oh, geez, let me knock on their door and tell them.
Oh, my God.
That's when you just hire an attorney and let them tell me.
Yeah, you don't even want to go there.
No kidding.
I have some really bad news for you today.
Yeah. You don't know me.
Really bad news.
But we're literally neighbors. Like, I need to live in this half of your house now. Because it's on my side of my lot.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, geez. Okay, guys. So when we come back, we're going to ask Nudie about entrepreneurship, because I'm very impressed on how she's been able to grow her business. She talked about how she was an escrow officer and then wanted to own her own company, and now is about to open her third. That's so impressive. So let's chat about entrepreneurship when we get back from this next commercial break. I hope you guys learned the lesson in the nightmare story. Always get a survey if you have any questions about where your property line is.
Yes.
Yes, and then Nudi's going to share some tips with us on entrepreneurship. We're going to ask her about tips on mindset. We ran into was it Atlanta? No, so this was kind of funny. Before we go to commercial break, I get on an airplane here in Salt Lake City, and then I get a text as I sit down from a friend. And he's like, hey, you going to Atlanta? And I'm like, what the heck? And so I stand up and I'm like, does somebody know I'm on this plane? Because it was like a 5:50 in the morning flight, right?
Yeah.
So sure enough, one of my best friends is on that flight, and I had just walked past him down the aisle, not that I didn't see him. So then we get to Atlanta and he has a layover. We're both going to Florida, but I'm going to Key West. He's going somewhere else. And he's like, let's go grab lunch. So I think we go to like TGI Fridays, and we go to sit down, and all of a sudden I hear Yoshi. And I turn around, it's you.
That is so funny. I know, that was so random.
I know.
Like a totally different stage.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that is true.
And you were just
Totally
coming from
remember
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which
That's
is the whole point of
right.
why I just shared that story,
Yeah.
because of mindset.
Yes, that is so cool.
So when we come back from commercial break, we will dive into tips that Nudia can share with you guys if you're thinking about starting a business, whatever it is. What you want to start a landscaping business, you want to start a title business. There's a lot of principles that apply to all of this. So we're going to dive into that when we get back.